Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Sunny Days in Detroit. This is our post-game show. As most of you know, probably all of you, if you're tuning into a Lions show, you probably know the Lions won yesterday, 20-13 in Arizona. They bounced back after an ugly Week 2 loss to the Buccaneers, who looked a lot worse this week. Which doesn't make you feel better, but then after watching the Rams beat the 49ers yesterday, does kind of make you feel a little better, right? That a team that did not look so good the first 2 weeks comes out week three, upsets probably considered the best team in the NFC before yesterday. So that's good news. A lot of bad news, unfortunately, and that's just the nature of the NFL. This game is brutal. It comes with injuries. Let's get into that before we get into all the X's and O's of what we saw yesterday. Davenport likely done for the rest of the season. From what I heard, an elbow injury. Don't have too much more information on it, but Marcus Davenport was a rotational guy that it was a rotational guy that I think was looking for. This was a prove it deal. 1 year, I think it was about $10 million. Was looking for maybe not this to be his permanent home, but definitely a place to prove himself to the rest of the league. Hey, I could still play. I'm talented. I have a lot of tread on the tires. And unfortunately, it looks like he's not going to get that chance. And that's a shame. I remember when Davenport was coming out of college a few years ago. He was a highly spoken about prospect rather. And his career never really come to fruition because of the injuries. And it sucks because, like I said, he's very talented. He's got the size. He's got the speed. It sucks to see this, but that's the nature of the NFL. It's next man up. And this, as we've said in the past, this is where Brad Holmes makes his money for this organization, right? This is why he got the extension. Not just Campbell, right? Campbell coaches the 53 that's in front of him day after day, but it's Brad Holmes that puts this roster together, that brings in the depth because this is the NFL. Guys are going to go down. A lot of guys went down yesterday. Brian Branch goes down with a concussion. I want to say fourth quarter. Unsure if he's going to play this week. We were kind of on the fence with Anzalone. He ended up not being able to play. He took the trip to Arizona, wasn't able to play yesterday. They were definitely missing him. Hopefully that's not the case for Brian Branch. He looked like he was all right on the sidelines. It looked like he was in the beginning of the protocol, and he just didn't come back in. So hopefully it's a mild concussion, right? And hopefully we could see him on the field again next week. They're absolutely going to need it against the Seahawks and Geno Smith. Sam Laporta went out second half with an ankle injury. He was carted off. Most of you remember. He's on the sideline while the Lions were on defense. Under 10 seconds left in the half, they put him on the cart. He sat in the passenger side. It wasn't like he was sitting in the back being tended to. Gets driven into the locker room, comes back out, and did play in the second half. I don't know if he caught a ball in the second half, but was able to play, so that's a good sign. So I imagine we're going to see Sam Laporta out there in the field next week. Almost said Jeff McNeil. Aleem McNeil. Get my sports mixed up here. Aleem McNeil went down with a shoulder injury, did not return to the game. Hopefully, I have no. I'll admit I have. That's the one note I didn't look into before this. I don't know what the status is on him. I guess we'll probably know more Wednesday or Thursday, given the fact that the game is on Monday. I believe they the injury report a day later. So, hopefully there's some clarity there. It does help you to know that you've got DJ Reader. DJ Reader played yesterday. You didn't really see him much, but the Arizona Cardinals, James Conner had a lot of trouble running up the middle of the field, and a lot of that is attributed to Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader. So good game for those guys. Just sucks that McNeil went down. Hopefully he's okay. The big news, though, today that literally just dropped about 10 minutes before we went live, Frank Ragnell's got a partially torn pec. He's going to be week to week. That hurts us, right? The strength of this team is the offensive line. That is the one thing. That is one of the things on this team that is absolutely at an elite level. Depending on where you look, PFF, NBC, ESPN. They're ranked anywhere between the first and the third best offensive line in football, and a lot of that is the stalwart they have there, number 77, Frank Ragnow. It sucks to lose him. We don't know that we're necessarily losing him. Guys have played through this injury, right? So depending on if it's a grade 1, grade 2, I don't know. All I know is that it's partially torn and he's week to week. My assumption, and I can't speak for the whole podcast here because the guys are chiming in the chat. I know Paul believes we'll maybe see him next week. Pat does not. I myself, I don't think they're going to play Frank Ragnow, given the fact that you've got Monday Night Football and then they go into a bye week. I can't imagine he's going to play. I imagine they're going to want to rest it. They're going to want to give him 2 weeks rest and hope he's ready to go for whatever that would be, week 6. So, as of right now, like I said, all we know is week to week. And that's what I could tell you. That's what Ian Rappaport's tweeted, Dove Kleiman, all those guys. So, once again, same thing as McNeil and Laporta and Brian Branch. We're going to have to wait until Wednesday, Thursday, whenever the injury report comes out to find out what's going on with those guys. On to yesterday's game. As I said, Lions win 20-13. Up and down game. Had us all kind of on the edge of our seat first half. A lot of scoring going back and forth. Lions definitely seemed to dominate that first half. And shout out to all the Lions fans flooding in Arizona. It looked like 50% of that stadium was filled with blue and white jerseys. So that was really, really, really good to see. Very similar to the Tampa game that me and Paul went to last year. So that's good stuff. Lions put up 20 in the first half, 0 in the second half. Same trend, really, that we've seen kind of since the second half of last year. I would almost say maybe the Saints game of last year, where the Lions have a monstrosity of a first half, put up a bunch of points, and then they stall out in the second. And that's frustrating. It makes no sense to me. And I think most people, right, that watch football, how you could put up 20 points, 24 points, 30 points and a half, and second half and barely get a field goal through. I mean, that's a problem. That's a problem, and it's not just something that's this year. As I said, it bleeds into last year. And, what else can you say? All 3 of those playoff games, it was a weak second half, maybe with the exception of the Bucs game. It brings you back to the San Francisco game, NFC Championship. They put up 24 points in the first half. They're up 24-7, and they lose that game. This is something that's going to come back to bite the Lions in the ass. I mean, they have to figure this out. They've got to find a way, at a minimum, to kick field goals, right? It's one thing to stall in the red zone and not get the ball into the end zone, but at least you're putting up points. I mean, you could survive on a 20-point first half and a 12-point, 13-point, 15-point second half. You could survive on that, right? That's 35 points. That's a lot of points in the NFL. But what you can't survive on is putting up 20 and then a goose egg in the second half, especially the way today's rules are laid out, how they favor the offenses. As great as this defense is playing, and I'm going to give them their flowers in a minute here, but as great as the defense is playing, something will break. Something will go wrong. You cannot always bank on your defense stopping the other team's offense in the second half. It's just, it's not always going to go that way. And so, I'm a little disappointed, to be honest with you, in Ben Johnson. I think he's been very inconsistent in his play calling this year. And the answer is right in front of him, in my opinion. The passing game has not looked good. Jared Goff has looked bad. There's really no other way to put it. He has not put together a complete game yet. He's put together a great fourth quarter against the Rams week 1. He put together a fantastic first half this week in Arizona. Did not look good against the Bucs last week. He's got more interceptions than touchdowns. That's a problem. Yesterday, 2 touchdowns to 1 pick, and he's really, really, really lucky. I mean, this whole team is really lucky that the refs blew that call. End of the first half, basically 2-minute warning. Jared threw a pick six. That's what that was. There should not have that play should not have been stopped. The refs should have kept the whistle in their pocket there because the clock was at 2:01, and even if Fox had the wrong clock and all of this is bullshit, I still don't care. That's a pick six, and we got bailed out. That's not good. That's not good at all. Jared's just flat out, he's looked off. And something that the Lions can lean on when Jared looks off is that run game. David Montgomery yesterday averaged 4.6 a carry. His stat line, I want to say he was 17 carries. He was over 100 yards. David Montgomery, 23 carries, 105 yards, 1 touchdown. His highlight reel spoke for itself yesterday. If you missed the game, definitely check that out. I mean, the guy had like a Marshawn Lynch-esque run where he hit the whole 8-9 guys around him, and he still gets the first down. Probably 12, 13 yards after contact. It was unbelievable. But you've got two great running backs in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. You got to ride these guys. You've got a guy you just drafted, Simeon Vakai. Out of whatever it was, Utah State. He showed flashes of brilliance in the preseason. The one time he's gotten the ball this year on a fake punt, got the first down. So you've got a great run game to lean on. I know they ran it a lot yesterday. I think they still should have ran it more. I think had they stuck to the run game in the second half, they could have put up probably at a minimum 6 points, 9 points, and it would have been a lot less stressful in the end of that game, right? We wouldn't be worrying about, Arizona getting one last chance to score a touchdown and whatnot. So Ben Johnson's got to be better. He's got to realize, when just Jared doesn't have it, and the first 3 weeks of the season, Jared hasn't had it. But more importantly, Jared's got to lock in. He just got the contract extension. He looked fantastic last year. Looked really good end of the second half of 2022. So you're going on a year and a half of great football out of number 16 there. And I expect more. And I think it's fair to say he's getting paid to do that. He is the quarterback of this team. He is the leader of this team, right? Everywhere you go, you hear the Jared Goff chants. I mean, the city's behind him. The team is behind him. There's no threat of Hendon Hooker taking over here, right? Like it's very evident that Jared Goff is the guy and will continue to be the guy probably for the duration of that contract, but he's got to step up. He's got to be better. He's got to be more consistent. He's putting the ball in really dangerous situations. That bonehead interception he threw yesterday to the linebacker in Arizona's red zone. You can't do those things. You've got to throw that ball away. You've got to take the sack. You can't rush these passes, and that's been a common trend for Jared Goff this year. When he doesn't have it, he's pushing the ball out of his hands as quick as possible, and he's putting the ball into traffic, and he's throwing interceptions he has no business throwing. He's better than this. I mean, it's inexcusable. The one thing I'll give him, I expect a little better play out of this offensive line. As I said before, you've got an all-pro in Penei Sewell, an all-pro in Frank Ragnow, a Pro Bowler in Taylor Decker. Kevin Zeitler has been a stalwart at guard in this league for 13 seasons now. He's an older guy. I expect better play out of this line. It is a line of veterans. There are no spring chickens there. There's nobody out there getting their first NFL snap, their first NFL start. It is a line of veterans, and we're going to take another big hit this week, losing Frank Ragnow. So what they'll do, I would assume Graham Glasgow moves over into that center position. He's done it before a million times for us, whether it be the previous regime or now this current regime. So, it's just got to get better. There's really no other way to put it. The only way this run game can continue to be as dominant as it is if this entire offensive line is blocking. And there cannot be a weak link in this armor. So, hopefully there is a little bit more designed this week for maybe some drag routes across the front. across the across the line of scrimmage, 2, 3, 4 yards off the ball. Just get the ball out of Jared's hands quick. Get it into a guy like Jamison Williams and Sam Laporta and St. Brown's hands as quick as possible. Trying to scheme these guys open. I mean, I know that's a really hard thing to do in the NFL, but this is the week that you need to figure something out, because if you don't have Frank Ragnow in, it's going to be tough sledding against the Seattle team. They're 3-0. They haven't played a whole lot of great teams, but they're 3-0. So, the pressure is certainly going to be on Monday Night Football, the world watching. There's another Monday Night Football game on before the Lions. Tennessee, I believe, is in Miami. That's not going to be a good game. So all eyes in the country are going to be on you. Starting the season 2-2 is a whole lot different than starting at 3-1. You really got to give yourself some breathing room. The Lions need to do that. But outside of that, as I said, 0 team points in the second half. That's a problem. That can't continue. What needs to continue and what hopefully will continue is the dominance of this defense. They have held every team they've played to 20 points or under. That's huge. You're playing a high-flying offense like the Rams in week 1, the Arizona Cardinals now in week 3, the Buccaneers who, all of a sudden we thought were world beaters until yesterday. They've held teams to 20 or under. That's big. That's really big, especially when you're playing all 3 of those games in a dome where people could throw the ball all over the yard. That's really big. A lot of these guys look great. Aiden Hutchinson looks phenomenal. Terrion Arnold is looking like a fantastic draft pick. Brian Branch has been on fire already, has an interception this year. Shout out to Kirby Joseph yesterday, turning the ball over. Deep pass, very deep. Must have been 50, 60 yards from Kyler Murray. He left the pocket there, chucks it down the field into the end zone. I want to say he was looking for Marvin Harrison Jr. Oof. Excuse me, forgot my fan. Dying. Looking for Marvin Harrison Jr., I believe. Kirby Joseph just snatches it. That guy's a turnover machine. I don't know where this defense would be without him. He's a true center fielder back there at safety. So we're blessed to have him. There's not a whole lot more you could say about this defense. I mean, they have done their job. Aaron Glenn has put them in position to succeed here. I mean, if you could criticize anything, maybe you'd like to see a little more blitzing. You'd like to see more pressure coming from anyone other that's not number 97. The Lions definitely need that. I wouldn't be shocked coming to the trade deadline if we're looking in the edge defender category, especially now with Davenport out. But currently, as I said, it's next man up. James Houston really has not gotten a chance to play this year. He's been inactive week 1, week 3. I got to imagine he's going to play week 4. They're probably going to elevate Josh Paschal into Davenport's position at edge, and you're probably going to see James Houston cycle in. And we all know the coaching staff has not had too many good things to say about James Houston, and I think as a fan base, we're waiting to see that guy we saw in the second half of 2022 that had whatever it was, 8.5 sacks in 7 games. We're waiting to see that. We'd love to see that. Unfortunately, his season was cut short last year. Broke his ankle against the Seahawks on a kickoff. Mind-blowing. You put a defensive end on a kickoff like that. But let's see something out of James Houston here. I mean, it's time to do something because this is the NFL, right? and that stands for not for long when you're not doing your job, especially when you're a guy like James Houston, a no-name guy coming out of Jackson State, a 6th-round pick, got cut from the team, got brought back. He's had a very turbulent career so far. And it just doesn't seem to me like there's a lot of guys in his corner in terms of that coaching staff. So he's got to go out on the field. He's got to prove it. He's got to get to the quarterback. He's got to pressure the quarterback. He's got to make Geno Smith make some sort of a mistake, or he's got to get to Geno and bring him to the ground a couple of times Sunday to really get this coaching staff's attention, because this is a team with Super Bowl aspirations and expectations. This is not a fringe playoff team, or this is a team that just won the division last year. They're looking to win it again this year. They're looking to have a deep playoff run. If you don't have the pieces on the edge of your defense, a great front office like this Lions front office is going to go out and find that piece, and your ass is going to be riding on the bench. So I hope for James Houston's sake that we could see him and he could start to do something for this team. Can't speak for the entire fan base. I could speak for myself. I'd love to see him back on the field. I'd love to see him doing something productive for us. So I'd love to see that. But shout out to the defense. Fantastic job yesterday. The Lions' bugaboo over the past, I don't know how far you want to go back, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. They cannot stop a mobile quarterback, whether it's Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, at times Aaron Rodgers. Justin Fields would always light us up. Excuse me. I was terrified that Kyler Murray was going to run all over us. And he did have some yards. I want to say he had 40 yards rushing yesterday. He had 5 rushes for 45 yards. He probably actually had more than that. They sacked him once or twice. They sacked him once. Probably really had more than that. But anyway, the point is the Lions have had a lot of issues with mobile quarterbacks, and they were able to relatively corral him, force him to push the ball down the field, and he really didn't have a whole lot of opportunities to do so. He was 21 for 34, 207 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Not a great day from him, and that's a credit to the Lions defense. They put him in a position to basically say, you're not going to beat us with your legs. We're not going to allow you to do that. We're going to take a defender out of the pass game to stop you from doing that or to slow you down, and we dare you to beat us with your arm, and he couldn't. Marvin, a shout out to definitely to Marvin Harrison Jr., 5 catches, 64 yards, 1 touchdown. That first half, he was eating Terrion Arnold's lunch. They kind of figured him out and slowed him down in the second half. And that's a credit to Aaron Glenn, but that's a major credit for Arnold. I was impressed with him yesterday once again. I'll get into that when I get into the players of the game really quick. But a lot of good players on that Arizona team, and the Lions found a way to slow down that offense and limit the damage. And I don't even want to say they played bend but don't break defense, because they were able to force Arizona to punt. They punted 5 times. They punted 5 times and turned the ball over once. I mean, that's certainly good enough to win a game defensively. So, as I said, I expect more out of this offense, but it's good to see this defense keeping them in the game and not getting, walked all over. And that's ultimately what I thought about after yesterday. It was an ugly win. It was a very ugly win. It wasn't pretty. It didn't make me feel super great about where we currently are, I'll be honest with you. But good teams find ways to win games when they're not at their best. When the quarterback's turning the ball over, when guys are going down with injury left and right, when you're not in your home stadium, when you have to cross the country to play a game, right? So, they found a way to get it done. Am I putting them on a pedestal and giving them a trophy and wiping their ass? No, I'm not doing any of those things. But at a minimum, they were able to win that game and come out on top, as I said, after really playing a very ugly game. A lot of penalties, too. We talked about it yesterday on the Sunny Days Media Football Show. The penalties are up this year. They're out of hand. I mean, did the Lions play their cleanest game? No. But I want to say they were like 9 for 85 in terms of penalty yards. That's ridiculous. A lot of these things are ticky-tack. I've always said this. You're going to throw a flag, it should be on something that's egregious, something that's preventing the game from being played, And I just think it's a lot of over-officiating, and I think I do think the officials felt bad about calling back the pick six. I think they kind of nicked the Lions a few times after that for that reason. They'll never come out and say those things, but I think they wanted to give Arizona a better chance in there because They knew they messed up that call. At the time, it was 13-7. If Arizona runs that back, which they were going to, right? There was nobody in front of them. You're talking about probably in all likelihood a 14-13 game, almost going into half. I don't know that the Lions score again there before the half. So, that was a pivotal point, and the referees took that away from Arizona. That's the only way to put it. But as I said, ultimately, a win is a win. We're happy to see it. We're on to Seattle next week, Monday night, ESPN. Couple players of the game. First and foremost, Matt Derry talked about it today on Locked On Lions, but I agreed with him. Jack Fox was probably the player of yesterday's game. Averaged 49.4 a punt. I want to say he punted also 5 times. He punted 5 times, 247 yards. He had a great game. He absolutely aided in giving the Lions defense every chance to succeed by pinning Arizona deep. He's a fantastic punter, one of the best signings in this Brad Holmes front office. So give him his flowers. Obviously, David Montgomery scores a touchdown yesterday, as I said, 23 for 105 yards, 4.6 a carry. He's been fantastic. Give him his flowers. And 2 guys on the defense I'm going to give flowers to, players of the game here. Aiden Hutchinson and Terrion Arnold. 2 very different reasons. Aiden Hutchinson, he had a sack. He had 4 tackles yesterday. He was fantastic. I mean, you saw in the end of the game, I believe it was the 3rd down. He was cycling in with someone coming back into this game. The guy was exhausted. He's gassed. You see he's got very little left in the tank because he's always on the field. He is a defensive end. He's an edge rusher. He's a true edge rusher. He's a guy that rushes the passer at an elite level and legitimately covers the run game. Most edge defenders are really one or the other, right? They're either a guy that covers the run really well and doesn't do much in the pass, or vice versa. They are a pass rush specialist, right? That's what we hear. I always think of Khalil Mack when I think of that term, right? That was a guy that would rack up the sack numbers, but was non-existent in the run game. Aiden Hutchinson is not that guy. He's not particularly the best either side of the game there, whether you're talking about the run or the pass, but he's probably top 5, top 10 in all of those categories, and that's what makes him elite. He's a tremendous athlete. He was a major factor in yesterday's game. They could not run the ball by him. You saw Kyler Murray was always looking at where Aiden was lining up pre-snap, where he was coming from. I mean, he's a factor. He is a factor. Offense's game plan for a guy like this, you always see the tight end chip on his side or the running back on his side, always concerned with where Aiden Hutchinson's going to be. So fantastic game from him. And Terrion Arnold. Terrion had a fantastic game yesterday for this reason. I can't imagine he had a good PFF score, so I'm not going to say from an overall standpoint, no, it wasn't a good game, right? He had that big pass interference on 3rd down, first quarter. That sucked. That's been a common trend with Terrion now, right? That's 3 straight games, 3 straight pass interferences. It sucks, but these are the growing pains of the cornerback position. The cornerback position is probably the hardest physical position to play, at least in the NFL. I would argue it's one of the hardest physical positions to play in all of professional sports, but definitely in football, right? And you're talking about a kid that just came out of college, is now lining up against pretty much the other team's best wide receiver, right? I mean, he was on Marvin Harrison Jr. for most of that game. Him and Carlton Davis kind of split that up there. But you see Terrion growing. You see him getting better week to week. You see him playing physical, right? He is not a cornerback. This is a cornerback that grew up in the Nick Saban Alabama system, right? Where corners hit. These corners don't hang back and if the ball's on the other side of the field, they kind of give up. No. These guys hit. They come to play. They are they're fast, they're physical. They look for blood, and that's Terrion Arnold. He reminds me a lot of Brian Branch. A lot of similarities in the way both of those guys play this game. Terrion Arnold, what's impressed me the most about him is his short memory. He got cooked a bunch of times yesterday. For most of that first half, he didn't look good, but he came out in that second half and he was resilient. And I don't know if he had. I want to say he had a pass breakup or two in that game, but the point was he settled in that second half, got more comfortable, and you didn't see him on the screen anymore. Nobody was calling out his name, and that's a good thing, right? That's something that the best corners are typically the ones that nobody hears about during a game, because no one's throwing their way, and that's a compliment to a cornerback. And that was what I saw out of Terrion Arnold in the second half. I thought he looked really good. He didn't seem to let those big gains bother him. And as I said, short memory, and that's what you need. You want to be a great cornerback in the NFL, you've got to have a short memory. You can't live and die on every defensive snap. You got to move on, and he's been able to do that. And I've seen that from him week after week, but I really saw it this week. As I said, Marvin Harrison kind of took his lunch money in the first half, and second half he pretty much shut him down. I mean, the whole defense collectively shut him down, but that was really, really good to see. I think Arnold's going to have a really, really great career in the NFL and with the Lions here. So that's something to really look forward to. I'm excited to see him next week. I got to imagine it's going to be him and Carlton Davis splitting DK Metcalf. So, that's a true test. That's a true test if you're an NFL cornerback with a man that size and you're trying to cover him. So let's see what happens. But pray that some of these injuries aren't as bad as we think. Hopefully we'll see Branch and McNeil at least, and if we could see Ragnow, even better. But I wouldn't count on it. That's all we got. Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you Thursday or Friday for the CA preview. So thank you all.